Greetings, innovators and leaders. This is AI for the C-Suite, your compass for navigating the exponential age. I'm your host, Chad Harvey, and we're here to bring you cutting-edge insights on AI tailored specifically for middle-market organizations. Buckle up as we embark on a journey through the transformative world of artificial intelligence. Today, I am very pleased to have Evan Schwartz join us. Evan's the Chief Innovation Officer at AMCS Group, where he's transforming how resource-intensive industries leverage AI for sustainable operations. With over 35 years of experience spanning waste management, recycling, scrap metal, and natural gas sectors, Evan has positioned himself at the forefront of what he calls compassionate technology, AI solutions that multiply human productivity rather than simply replacing people. What makes Evan's perspective particularly valuable for our middle market audience is his dual role as both practitioner and educator. Beyond leading AI initiatives at AMCS, he serves as an adjunct professor at Jacksonville University, where he's helping reshape computer science curriculum to focus on agentic AI and real-world applications rather than building LLMs from scratch. He's also a Forbes Technology Council member and author of the Amazon bestseller People, Places, and Things, a framework for a pain-free ERP implementation. At AMCS, Evan has overseen the deployment of AI systems that can reduce fleet operations from 13 trucks to 10 while maintaining the same service levels, delivering $3 million in annual savings per implementation. His work spans route optimization, predictive maintenance, vision AI for contamination detection, and fraud prevention systems that detect everything from scale manipulation to billing irregularities. Outside of work, Evan enjoys time with his wife Lisa, their two tech-savvy sons, and their loyal dog Peanut. Since 6th grade, he's also been an avid D&D player. That's Dungeons & Dragons for you out there, most often serving as the Dungeon Master, which no doubt has given him valuable skills he's been able to apply to his teaching, gamifying both his AI and project management courses. Today, we'll explore how Evan's innovations in resource-intensive industries translate to broader middle-market applications, where he sees AI tech heading next, and whether that slightly too perfect personal bio of his is actually deep cover for his secret life as a superhero. Evan, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
Hey, Chad. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. Let's dive right in. I talked in the introduction there about this 13 to 10 truck reduction that you had mentioned, and we unpacked that a little bit in our prep call. But I'm very interested in how you can go from 13 trucks to 10 while maintaining the same level of service and save $3 million annually. I know everybody that's got fleets out there is going to be very interested in that. So I thought, let's just get right to the meat and we'll start right there. So walk us through how you achieve those multiplicative effects and what specific AI techs are driving such dramatic operational improvements.
So that is the great start of that question. What AI techs is driving that? And again, that's just a very narrow vertical of AMCS across a broad suite of supply chains is in the logistics side. And we take AI from the more academic approach. So AI could be an algorithmic AI. AI could be what I think a lot of folks in the hype of media today is about generative LLMs, chatbots, and now agentic AI is kicking in. And there's definitely strong use cases for those. But where we're leveraging things at the operations and logistics level is AI that is very good at pattern recognition, solving puzzles through trial and error, algorithmic turns, taking in massive amounts of parameters, and then working out the shortest path to a solution, right? Whether it's a route for optimizing a route, or it's just trying to solve a problem with which that it can work out the outcome of it. Now, as you brought in, any one of those verticals, whether it's optimization of a route for your vehicles, if I were to give you an optimized route for your entire fleet today, whether it's 13, 100, or 10,000, that's an idealistic route. Right? Because again, that's a digital view on top of a map, on top of roads and parameters I fed it, and it goes, all things being equal, this would be your most efficient route. So you're always going to fall slightly short of that idealistic view because reality never really plays out the way you would expect it to. So you start there, but there's still a value. You get a nice tangible return. It was worth the energy. Then we take it a little bit further and we look at another vertical, which is why is my vehicle at that location? What is the service it's performing? What services could be causing concerns? Where's flexibility? Where can AI help? And one of them is block containers, overfull containers. There's another one. If I'm picking up a value stream, it might be a waste to the consumer, but I'm trying to turn it to a value stream. So I'm providing the service at a cost that considers the fact that I'm going to turn that material into a value. So you're not going to get it at the full rate. But if you give that material to me in a way that I can't turn it into a value stream, it's contaminated. That's the other area where at that service point it becomes valuable. We can use AI with cameras to look and see, is the container lid open? Is there trash all over the place? Because if I go back a step and I look at my route optimization, let's just say it's a standard municipal, I'm expecting you might have a 60 or a 90-gallon container out there. Well, if the lid's open and it's overstuffed, you're putting more than the 90 gallons, so now you're messing up my idealistic route. So how do I feed those things together? Then we took another step forward and we're going, okay, what other item impacts the optimization around this? And one of the cool things of us introducing ESG and EHS into our entire suite is not really, it's important to AMCS and that's what kind of gets me out of bed every morning, is I feel like I'm part of a company that's trying to save the world, which is great, especially when you consider the environmental impacts today. But it's also looking at how can you do the right thing for the environment while also making money. And we found using AI a very nice correlation that showed where your highest carbon footprint was within your organization across your vertical supply chain is always where the greatest efficiencies are. It's where you're leaking money, or there's more cost in there for you than should be. So we're not necessarily saying go solve the carbon problem just because you think it's the right thing to do. It's always virtuous to do that, but we understand businesses have to keep the lights on, have to pay payroll. But those are also strong indicators of where you can find additional leakage, revenue opportunities, or inefficiencies. So looking forward, we realized that trucks had a predictive maintenance schedule within their fleet maintenance. Every one of these large companies that have a fleet of vehicles bring that maintenance internally. It's not like I just go up to Jiffy Lube and get them maintenance, right?
What?
But yeah, I know. But every day that I've taken that vehicle out of service is a day it's not making money for me, right? That's like saying I'm going to have the store open, but I'm not going to have the cashier sitting at the register. So how are you supposed to make money? If I could some way know whether or not that vehicle needed maintenance, or I knew exactly the precise amount of maintenance, I could either shorten the maintenance cycle or take it out altogether. So if I had 4 baked in predictive maintenance cycles for this vehicle a year and I could reduce it to 3, not only am I not introducing contaminants to the world, used oil, things of that nature, I'm extending the value in a year time frame of what that vehicle can make. All 3 of those individually are strong. Let's build verticals into it. Let's dig in. Let's put some AI. Let's put some algorithms around it. Let's understand the data behind it. We did all that. Where AMCS took it the next step is we looked at the connective tissue between the 3. So I already kind of alluded to that if you built an idealized route, but the reality of the route was significantly different, if I can take that data of the reality of the route and do something with it, if there is a habitual offender that's contaminating the feed, rather than assuming that that's a value stream, I can now charge appropriately for the contaminated material. If the trash can is always over full and I have to go do a dump and return, have to go to landfill, that's unexpectedly, I'm messing up my idealized route. I can pass that cost on to the resident because what we agreed to do was a 90-gallon pickup. Same thing on the predictive maintenance. If I'm able to decide and really pinpoint exactly what the maintenance is to extend the life of the equipment, to make the equipment maximize for utilization, which predictive maintenance doesn't do it today. Not really. It's not there to maximize value. It's there to maximize life. Well, that's great. But if the vehicle went from burning 180 gallons of diesel a day to burning 240 because the way your predictive maintenance isn't keeping the machine running really well, that's a lot of fuel that I'm burning that I shouldn't have to burn. So all of these start to get a multiplicative effect around that entire logistics. It gives you visibility. And it's not just the big data. You'll know this. You go back even 10 days and you're like, big data, we're overwhelmed by all the data now. We don't know what to do with it now. Well, now we have tools that I can feed this big data and it can provide insights and parameters, feedback to us that are actionable, that we can now build systems around that react to it and learn as it goes, right? And we're doing the same thing across the entire vertical integration of the business, from the customer onboarding, the customer portal. We're putting agentic AI into doing busy work. So there's a lot of opportunities today in business where you can smartly apply AI tech, but you have to look at the entire vertical. Don't just take the LLM and say, I'm just going to use that. Not everything fits the LLM model, and you're trying to wedge a square into a round hole.
I would be lying if I said I hadn't been looking forward to our conversation today, Evan, because so much of AI I found in conversations with executives, they're not thinking about industries like trash. They're not thinking about construction. They're not thinking about the real world application of some of these systems and the power that can be brought to them. And so for folks here that are not necessarily in the trash or the waste management side of things, but maybe they have fleets. I know you've talked about garbage trucks. I think you used the word mobile data centers, right, with 15 cameras and onboard AIs. But if I'm managing any type of fleet at all, maybe I've got that level of sophistication in my vehicles, maybe I don't. But for folks that have fleets in general, delivery trucks, service vehicles, what can they learn from your approach into what you've just been outlining here that is specific to them without really kind of focusing in on that waste management sector?
Yeah, so even if it's just even if it's just a service-oriented business, I come and I'm going to maintenance your lawn, or I'm going to fix your air conditioner, or whatever. It's the reason why the book is People, Places, and Things, because you get up high enough and it all starts to sound the same. It's a vehicle that's being dispatched by someone on a route for that day to multiple sites. I have to make sure they have the right equipment on the vehicle. I need to make sure the vehicle is safe. It has a safety checklist. It's in good maintenance working order, and it can get there, do its work. How long do I think that work's going to be? So even in our waste primary industry, and it's really recycling now, there's so little waste left, is we have that same model with roll-on and roll-off containers, construction sites. I go there, I pick up a container, I'll do a dump, I bring it back, it rotates inventory. That's very similar to any kind of a service-oriented in business where I'm doing a point and check service or a milk run type of opportunity. I still want to optimize those routes. If I'm having this guy driving all over the place, I'm burning gas. If let's just say that I have 100 fleet, I'm a small operator with 100 service trucks, and I'm saving 2 gallons a day in drive burning of fuel. That's a huge impact to the environment. 2 gallons, it's like $7 a day per truck times. It's $700 a day. That is a direct bottom line impact. You take that across the month, across the year, now you have real tangible dollars. And that's a simple implementation of route management and efficiencies. If you and predictive maintenance would do the same thing, right? Because those vehicles earn me money when they're providing services. If they're sitting in my maintenance bay, they're not making me money.
Right.
Right. So it's easy to start to see how these same technologies can be applied across anything that involves a logistics operation.
Perfect. No, that's very helpful. I appreciate that. You touched on a number of points in your opening comments here, and we could probably spend the rest of our time just drilling into them. I'm going to pick one or two out here in particular that caught my attention. You talked about the volume of data. And this is something that I think we see at a societal level, not just with respect to fleet management, but specifically within the context of our conversation. How do you handle the data management challenges when every vehicle all of a sudden is becoming a data collection point?
IoT's been around for a while. So the good news is that streaming of data, that's well understood. It's working pretty well, and we're getting in that feed. As that comes in, and it just lands, whether it's kind of a time series database or a lake or something of that nature, unstructured, unformed data. The good news today is AI is getting so good at being able to take that parameterized data in, do dimensionality reduction, and it's a self-learning model, right? So I can run it through a few iterations, and again, where the human brings the most value is just managing the process. Let it do the hard work. Let it figure out all the clustering and where all the patterns are, and then present the information back and go, yeah, okay, Yeah, they all have four wheels. That's not important. We're not looking at the number of wheels. But thank you for identifying that all these vehicles had four wheels. That's great. And then so we kind of do a reinforcement training against it. But now AI is turning what would be big data to a trivial task. It's more about the strategic value of it and looking at that. Now I'm going to try to get away from jargon here because I do teach this, so it does tend to slip out of my tongue, but there's ways where if you've got 30 parameters that would drive against the data, that it'll automatically reduce and go, I'm with high confidence, somewhere between 80 to 90%, I can get to your answer with these four. Yeah, these 30 have some kind of an impact, but these four are the driving parameters, inputs that really drive the output of the answer you're looking for. Now that allows us to scale down the noise, right? Dial into the signal, really bring the signal into the model, train against that, and you start to get that strong, repeatable excellence around some of the earlier models. When you get into the LLMs, you want stochastic or randomness built into the output because that gives us the illusion that it's human and alive, right? So it makes us feel good. But then I can't expect it to have the machine precision that I would expect, say, something on the assembly line to do. And that just gets down to use case management, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each one of the various models, stacking on top of them. And with agentic AI, the power now is I can bring that algorithmic model and make it a tool set to the agentic AI, giving it a little bit more, we're going to use the term loosely, reasoning, but it can strategize when to call into the algorithm to get more precision, as opposed to calling in to, say, an ERAG or some sort of a data load that it will make decisions off of that to understand how to solve the task that you've given it. Right?
Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to ask anything about this, but you just opened the door, and I've got to ask. So when you talk about injecting, and I think you talked about the stochastic approach there, right? Injecting a little bit more randomness in so that it, quote, appears human. How important is that for us when we're dealing with these systems to feel like that it is human-esque?
I'm going to answer it with two sides, because one, I said that it appears human as a comfort point, not as a causative. We're not giving it stochastic nature to make it appear human, but that does give it that better feel for us, right? But the stochastic nature of these models is how I can ask it to render a face it's never seen. If I took that out, it would only spit out the data that I put into it, right? So as it learns patterns, like learning how to build a face, it realizes that eyes live somewhere within a range on a face. Eyebrows live in a range, nose lives in a range, cheeks and face sizes. So then when I ask it for a new face, it's able to work within those parameters of eyes the early ones were having eyes all over the place, right? It's getting a little crazy. But
six fingers, yeah, right.
Yeah, we still see some of that.
Right.
So maybe it saw an image with six fingers. I don't know. That's the problem if you're training it on, generated data, right? It starts to think it's true. But the value of that is it does allow me to now start to enter into synthetic data if I know there is a range between 0 and 0.1, all of that infinite range, those are valid values. Do I actually have to go out into the world and sample it as a piece of data, or can I just synthetically generate those ranges to give it data to train on, to make patterns? And it gives us a richer set of output that happens to be very comfortable for humans to see. The way that it constructs the words, the way it puts a paragraph together feels good. Feels like look, I was talking to Microsoft the other day, and there's a cost to how many times you've thanked ChatGPT. Thank you, ChatGPT. It's like those are all for every 4 characters is a token. It's costing the model. And they're like, stop thinking it. But I'm not gonna stop thinking it. I'm very appreciative for my robot overlords. But the reality is it does evoke an emotional response, which we haven't dealt with yet, right? I'd say societally, we're learning how to deal with it, and there's a variety of pros and cons to that. I'm more on the optimistic side of the output. I think we'll recover from this, and it'll lift humanity to a place that I don't think anyone's thinking at right now. There's just a lot of doom and gloom kind of floating out there because we just tend to gravitate.
Well,
to
we're hardwired for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a human nature hardwiring thing. I appreciate the way you parsed your answer to the question, and thank you for getting a little bit deeper on that first part, because I realized that the way I phrased that could have been misleading. So thanks for clarifying that. I also appreciate the fact that we're aligned in our desire to thank our future robot overlords so that we're looked on favorably when the inevitable uprising happens. So thank you for that.
Exactly. You never know. It's just playing the whole table, really. Putting bets everywhere.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Let me recalibrate here. Real quick hit question before we shift kind of to the next level of topics here. And that is one of the things that execs always want to know is how long is it going to take and what's it going to cost? Forget the what's it going to cost. But when we're talking about implementing this next level fleet intelligence that you're discussing here, what would a reasonable ROI timeline be? I know I'm asking you a difficult question, but what do you think that would look like?
The time frame depends on the complexity of your current logistics. So that's because the tech's there, right? You feed it the right data, it runs the algorithm and does the output. Where we see most of the investment is trying to suss from the customer all of the complexities of their business model, right? That we have a governance rule that says that our fleet has to do this, or maybe if we don't know and you're like, no, none of my vehicles will go over 60 miles an hour, or I don't want a big giant garbage truck getting on the expressway, right? So we have to, now some of this stuff we just know and we bake into it, right? But there's always nuances there that requires a lot of churning and running. Then there's a lot of test runs because there's things, what we're finding that even businesses don't know about their business, right? That is, and that's
shocking.
It's not shocking, really, because to me, that's the number one problem with ERP rollouts is the fact that you'll come in with a brand new ERP and it's whatever they have today is working, but no one really understands there's some Access database glowing in a corner that's propping up a critical business process that you almost always find out during the deployment phase. So it's the same thing. So it's data in, garbage out. I don't think that rule has ever changed. So getting those rules right and understanding how to map to the real, doing some test runs, getting the feedback, maturing that model's input parameters, getting that, I don't want to use the jargon here, but getting the number of parameters as narrow and as few, the dimensionality as small as possible is really where the cost is. And I have found that I'm asking you a question about you that you haven't thought of, and it's hard because now you have to go think critically about your business. And then there may be parts of your business you don't want to tell me about. Like maybe you've got a handful of your drivers that have an extended lunch, and it just happens to be very close to where their girlfriend lives, and that's fine. But if I'm going to optimize that route, I need to either take that into consideration, and you're okay with it, or we need to do OCM, which is organizational change management. So it's a bit of a bit and pull because we also find things that are bad practices that I will never reach an optimal route or servicing of your vehicle if you also allow your drivers to take the vehicles home and use them for personal vehicles. Then that becomes a variable that is almost difficult or impossible to factor into the model unless that person's going to allow me to put a sensor on the vehicle and track everything they do and add it into the vehicle. So those are the time frames. It's almost the people component and the culture piece and what you know. If you've got all of that down, the implementation time is 30 to 60 days. It's just getting all of it in a way that produces the value and the expected outcome. And sometimes it's hard, right? Because they don't know what they don't know. But I can tell you the outcome when you get there, that if you're looking at a region that's got 13 trucks and we're able to put 3 of them in the parking lot because you can run the same services for 10, that's saving you almost $3 million a year bottom line capital costs for roughly a $10,000 to $50,000 input. That's a huge return on investment if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah, the foundational components are always the most difficult, and
Right.
they're the least sexy. So
That's right. There is nothing great about data analytics. You're not getting your heart pumping or passion unless you're like me and you love data. There's very few of us that really get excited about data.
Indeed. Oh my. All right. Let's talk a little bit. You talked earlier about how the Vision AI can detect overfilled containers and spot contamination issues, things like that. I'm interested in expanding that out a little bit. So how are you applying similar visual inspection tech to other operational challenges? Are there other big opportunities for middle market companies when it comes to vision? Because I think so much time we're not talking about the multimodal aspect of these systems, and the vision component, I think, is the next big frontier that a lot of well-heeled companies are starting to crack, but middle market is still just kind of waking up to that possibility. So with all that said, how are you applying visual tech to other operational challenges?
So we also service the scrap metal industry, which they either source it in through peddlers or they've got large industrial. And I'm not sure I'm familiar with the business, but you bring in chunks of stuff and you have to run it through a grinder. And sometimes, it's a propane tank. I wonder if there's propane in it. I wouldn't want to put that in a grinder where metal is grinding on metal and sparks are flying, right? So there's opportunities, not necessarily for contamination overfull, but you could see use cases around safety, making sure that things that are going into other machines that are being grinded up are the appropriate things with a shutoff switch, right? So someone can go, look, I'm not saying a propane tank's not metal. What I'm saying is, can you check to make sure it's empty,
Right.
right? Now, where it gets interesting is, okay, great. How does it know that this is empty versus full? Well, that's a guy with a Sharpie putting a big red X on it and throwing it back in the pool. And I'm now trained my AI. If they see the red X, that's fine. That's golden. Let it go. Right. And that's taking the old analog where I've got the human guy in the yard managing the material, just marking it safe in a way that we can train the models to do. That's where the stochastic nature of it comes in, because he doesn't have to draw that X perfectly every time. It just has to be within the range of what an X looks like, right? That's the utility of that. So back to your other comment of, do we have to have these in the model? We don't, but it makes them a heck of a lot more useful, right? So there's a trade-off there. So there's a variety of opportunities for safety inspections, grading of material, whatever you're doing. I'm bringing material in. If I'm bringing in a bunch of logs, I'm expecting to turn those into boards. And I can take a picture of the back of that thing and I can see the cat faces and I can see the knots. And then I could calculate within plus or minus a variance how many thousand board feet are on the back of that truck. That saves a lot of time and helps me manage the valuation of my inventory. If I'm able to put cameras with spectral analysis, and I could take a pile of copper and aggregate it across various, I guess, recipes, or I don't want to get too jargony, but there's a whole bunch of different grades of different types of alloys and metals based on their content. And it's pretty easy using certain technology just to tell you what's in that pile. So, how much time do you think scrapyards today use having a manual guy that's been doing it for 100 years separating things into pure piles?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then imagine a sorting line being able to do that. We already know the machinery because everyone's watched
Right.
Modern Marvels or something like that, where it blows a grain of rice out just because it's not the right color of white or whatever. I mean, if we can get to that level, we could, with Informed, be able to now sort these things a lot more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful point. We're already seeing Vision AI on sorting lines, robotic sorting lines, where rather than human hands picking into dangerous places, robots are now going into dangerous places and sorting them. It also opens up unknown use cases.
Oh, yeah.
As we are backing in, we're seeing EPR. We could kind of put our boot on the necks of the waste haulers, the recyclers, saying it's your job to do this reverse logistics. You go out and get all the good stuff and make it where it's affordable to recycle it again. We spent thousands of years learning how to dig stuff out of the ground and turn it to a product. We spent a few decades learning how to go get it back out of the hands of the purchasers and do it that same way. So it's going to take time. But if I'm able to drive any kind of analytics that way, and I can start to put pressure on the producers. It'd be nice, producers, if you produce something that was easier to recycle, then I could get back in better. Well, how do you put the boot on it? Well, as the material comes in single stream, and I can put a Pepsi bottle here and a Coke bottle there, and I can say the Pepsi bottle, for theory, I'm not trying to pick on Pepsi here, might be harder to recycle and Coke is easier, then now I've got the ability to separate it, and then I can have accountability that way. And you can start to do that with all products. Right. So there's just, when it gets down to how do you apply AI across a variety of use cases, the more and more we're training it, we're opening up use cases we didn't even think were possible,
Right.
even
Well,
5 years ago.
one of the things I think I just heard you say is that AI might significantly advance our efforts toward achieving closed loop systems.
Circular economy, net zero. That is what we're going for. Right. I mean, look, I'm not going to be a champion of Elon Musk's approach because we're pulling lithium from all over the world and shipping it. People are like, I don't know where the return on ROI on that battery is,
Right.
right? But I can recycle that material, right? If you look past his words and you look to the genius of the full vision, because he's not saying it'd be nice if he did, but I'm now drawing connections where he's not. He's asking people who where you could buy the electric vehicle to go put an e-recycling plant very close to it.
Hmm.
At some point, we've distributed that material globally. I don't have to dig it out of the ground anymore. I just take it to a recycle plant, recycle it. So there's a saying in our business that scrap doesn't like to move far, trash doesn't like to move far, because that's the reverse logistics problem, right? The more I have to move that, I'm reducing the value because there's a cost in logistics. So if I can get the closed loop within the cities, within the manufacturing, within the vertical integration, and I can make it as easy as possible to bring it back in and recycle, you've cracked the code. Now I'm not having to dig as much out of the ground. I'm getting 6 and 7. The paper business is that success. No one rings this bell. But if you look at the log trucks on the road in North America, every log that's out there is just the growth for that year. I'm not going to throw out specific company names, but in the Southeast, we had for one company 25 virgin pulp mills, cutting trees, bringing them, chopping them, chipping them up, cooking them, making paper. Today, there's two for that same company. The rest are secondary fiber, OCC, DLK, because I can take a cardboard box, repulp it at least 6 or 7 times. It was only 3 times. Chemistry and advances came out. I'm growing it to 7. What else can we do? Right? We're seeing the same thing in virgin polymers for plastics. Metal has always been a success story. That reconculates a lot. So, but it's all about logistics at this point. We know the material would be useful again. It's just getting it from its product back to its source to run it through the delivery system again. And AI is helping us do that in a variety of ways, making things that before weren't practical, practical.
Yeah. So let's tease that out a little bit further because we're talking a lot, and you've given some fantastic examples here in terms of waste and recycling and scrap metal. I know you also work with the natural gas industry. We just touched on paper and pulp. What, in your experience, are the common operational patterns that you've identified that can make a certain business an ideal candidate for AI transformation, regardless of their industry? Because there's got to be some principles that you've observed and some patterns that you have seen. You've already identified a couple in your comments here, but I wanted to kind of drill into that a little bit deeper.
So every business today has to have a piece of software to run. There's no one running on pencil and paper anymore. No one. You have some centralized system. That system has to be, if you're a manufacturer of any kind, you're feeding in raw materials, you're manufacturing, and you produce finished goods. Move up vertical stream, you're a retailer, you're buying inventory, managing inventory, and selling it out to the consumer. Right, there's the pattern, right? I'm bringing in material, I'm trying to get it into a different state transfer to a point where I can make money on it.
And I want to pause right there. When you say bringing in material, that doesn't even have to be physical material. We could be talking about raw knowledge material too, correct?
It could be, yeah, data. It could be, you could run that same thing from a data flow. I'm bringing in bulk data. I need to transform it, make it valuable, and I'm producing a product out of it. There's a number of consulting groups out there, Boston Consulting, Deloitte, that do exactly like that, right? They bring in a bunch of data, they put it in a form that makes sense, and they put it out there. So all of those systems have a similar flow. There's nuances all in there, the manufacturing, the MES, all of those are a little bit different. All of those could benefit in a variety of different ways. But the question is what's the connective tissue between all of my steps? Don't forget that. We've gotten really good at going deep, microscopic at a specific activity, but no one's looking at the handoff. Right? That's my point of zoom out. Make sure that the feedstock from one system that might be an output or even a waste. I mean, to go back to the forestry side, you bring in a bunch of chips, you cook them up, you get black liquor, green liquor. There's a swap out because that black liquor has terpenes and stuff that they want to filter out of it. That's a feedstock, right? Otherwise, I'd be wasting that. Where are you seeing waste? Walmart gets a whole bunch of stuff shipped to them today in cardboard boxes. That's a way that they need to get the stuff out of the cardboard boxes on the shelves to sell. Now they're left with a cardboard box. So all of the recyclers around that are like, let me get you a baler out there. Let me get you that baled up. We'll come back and pick that up. That's a value stream for us. I'll reduce your waste costs. Every opportunity, whether it's data, because I mean, if I'm bringing in a ton of data that isn't valuable, having a way to look at that dimensionality reduction, then I don't need to bring that in. That's compute. That's costing me cloud resources. So you just have to think about it in those terms across the board. You're bringing something in, you're transforming it to something valuable. How do you make that as efficiently as possible? Where can I put those steps? And again, I go back to if you're in any kind of a large scale organization, one of the biggest tells is your carbon footprint. Where are you investing the most energy that is creating the most carbon footprint? Have a hard look at that, right? Everyone talks about dashboards and BI. It doesn't give you the answer. It gives you the what. This is wrong. You now have to go find the why. So just consider your ESG reporting as, here's a great dashboard of this item. Let me look at my process. Why is this so high? Let's go look at that. How can I reduce that carbon footprint? And conversely, you're reducing costs and you're gaining efficiency. That's what we call performance sustainability. So knowing those things, there's more than just having reporting on the sustainability out. It's building as much efficiency as you can, and then thinking about the output, because you're going to find what we've found every single time. A use case that we thought was not even on the radar has now been exposed by the efficiency gains that we found. It was out of bounds. We couldn't get there from here. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze. We've now added efficiencies that brought this use case way back into the center. Wow, is there value here? Is there a market for this? Let me go start looking at that. What am I wasting that isn't waste? Right? The reverse logistics, businesses bring in material in tons and they produce waste. Is it waste or is it a value stream? Is there a way that you can feed that right back into the circular economy? And now what would have called waste and had to pay someone to come pick up, you're now delivering to a company that's recycling it as a value. You got to look at those things, and data is how you're going to get there.
Right. Well, what's that old saying? What matters is measured.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that is a good one.
So, speaking of what's measured and what matters, I'd be remiss if I didn't turn a little bit to some of the points that you raised in your book, and I think you characterize it as the ERP AI integration challenge, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I know you talk about implementation, and ERPs are all about measuring and clocking things. But when we talk about ERP implementations, there's been a high failure rate. And I don't recall the exact statistic in your book. I'm sure you can refresh my memory about that.
Yeah.
But
70%.
70%. There we go. I was going to say 72. 70%. Perfect. So with that high failure rate, what do organizations need to know and what execs need to know about integrating AI with their core businesses? Because AI is having an impact on the ERP landscape. I see it every single day, and I see ERP vendors trying to trickle out bolt-on AI solutions. I'm not going to pick on Salesforce today. I picked on them enough on this podcast. But there's all kinds of examples of that. So how is AI changing the ERP landscape, and what should execs know about this when they're integrating AI with their core business systems?
So months ago, I wrote an article, and I'm very passionate about cryptocurrency, the blockchain, the tech behind that. I just think we're not really applying enough use cases to it. And with the infrastructure backbone, so this was in the article, MCP was really just beginning to get traction from Anthropic, but the ask was an infrastructure layer that agentic AI can discover, has discoverability, and be able to learn how to communicate interconnectedly into systems. You see an ebb and flow of companies going from best of breed to best of suite, back to best of breed. I want one system to rule them all. It's overly complicated. It's heavy. It's clunky. Let me go back to best of breed. Now I've got 900 applications I'm trying to maintain and integrations and points of failure. So let me go back to, so we have this sort of back and forth in the industry, and it's been doing this for decades. But as the acceleration of technology is going, I mean, I would say by the time this podcast airs, there's going to be some new earth-shattering, development in the AI space. That is having a ripple effect on the technology. So you're seeing a race for all of the ERPs to add an MCP layer. We're doing the same thing. That MCP layer allows for the interfaces into our system to be discoverable by agents and understand how to interact with our system, and I don't have to hand code it.
For our non-tech listeners, by the way, what is MCP?
So it's the Model Context Protocol. It's just a method for if you were a human being and you wanted to learn how to interface over APIs, application programmers interface to an ERP, you'd have to learn their APIs. What is it? Is it SOAP? Is it JSON? Is it whatever? And then you'd have to code it and understand the data they need, get the data back, interpret it. It's heavy, right? And then as one end to the other end, because I'm integrating, changes, now there's a high chance for breakage, right? So the MCP layer is a standard format that is interrogatable by AI, agentic AI particularly, that would allow it to use an LLM to build a strategy and plan with tools to go ahead and interact with your system, no coding necessary. And early indicators is it's living up to the hype. It's actually, this is one of the few I'm kind of impressed with how it's working out. So I could genuinely see within months, not even years at this point, maybe 18 months, that integrating systems will no longer be necessary. And if you're a buyer, having an MCP rather than open APIs will become the new standard. In other words, I'm not going to buy you unless you have MCP because I have an agentic service model, but a backbone to be able to share data between my systems. And now you just plug in and the agentic interrogates what your MCP service model is, and then data flows because I asked it to. The interface now becomes a more human prompt. I'm telling my orchestrator, hey, I need to be able to move stuff from my operational ERP into my financial SAP, JD Edwards, insert whatever here. And it goes, okay, I know how to get that data. I see where the accounting is. I'll pick it up. And I understand this already because I'm able to interrogate the other. So I can just match up all your journals, put everything in the right socket. That used to take months.
Mm-hmm.
And now for things that haven't been built yet that follow a standard should just plug in if they're properly described. Now there's learnings. This is still very new and maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I'm just from what I'm playing with right now, you can't open a Microsoft product right now without a co-pilot jumping up and going, how can I help you? And I can take that co-pilot and point it to our MCP service layer and it goes, yeah, I know everything there is to know. What would you like? And I can ask it questions about a customer and it'll go get me a customer, those details and answer that question. That's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a lot of the ad hoc reporting that's a heavy cost for businesses could go away because now I can just ask an agent to go get the data and give it back to me. So I don't need ad hoc reports. So all of that. So just here's the canned reports. Here's the system. It self integrates into your global enterprise. And now I can ad hoc the data and run with my canned reports. Man, the speed from purchase to value got really short. Right. So those are the areas where I'm seeing most of the improvement. But even on the project, because there's so many projects, depending on the size of your implementation, you may come in and there may be a 400 or 500 page architectural document describing your implementation of the CRP across your enterprise. That's a lot for a handful of brains to know. Things are going to slip through the cracks. Why? Because we're human beings. We don't know everything. And then I might have identified in my discovery, you've got 30 integrations, even 10 key integrations that all have specs, all have documents, all have requirements. I can put that into an AI and ask it a question. Can you align all this? What am I missing? What do I not have a test for? And it goes, oh, well, I don't see that there's a test script for this. You might want to build. Thank you. Just that right there could not only save you from an embarrassing moment upstream, but hours of having to think through and skiff through all that stuff to know it. Now, it doesn't come without risk. It's not perfect. These generative AIs do come with a certain amount of, we use the term hallucinations, but that's, you're seeing the randomness in the machine, right? So, but it still is a net positive on saved time, even if you just review the output, because it can give you a link to the resource, a link to the document. Here's what I saw. Here's what I think. And then you're just checking for things rather than reading 800 pages of documentation and trying to put it together yourself. Imagine the savings on billable hours.
Profound.
I think the UI is going away too.
Well, And that I want to go to that next. But real quick, before we leave the topic of ERP and kind of MCPs, I think you did a very good job of unpacking MCP, and thanks for pausing and answering my question there about that.
Yeah.
You, I think, have written about Germany's SAP failure and that $600 million write-down. So just a real quick, and I think you outlined a few things here, but a couple other quick points from you or perspectives. What are some of the warning signs that an ERP project is going off the rails and is going to fall into that 70%?
I wasn't close enough to the individual project, but I will tell you in general how I've seen projects be these runaway billable. There's no vision statement well thought through up front that is compelling and compassionate enough to survive the project. What do I mean by that? If you're replacing a classic system, it's grown with you 5 years, 10 years, 15, sometimes 20 years. I guarantee you what you have today did not exist day one when you got the thing 20 years ago. So it's a really comfortable pair of jeans.
Mm-hmm.
That unicorn does not exist in the wild anywhere. So you're going to get something new that might be 60, 70, 80% would be meteoric, right? But if you're in the 60 to 80% range of a good solid match, you're there. How much you need to change is a problem. So why did you buy it? To say I bought it because my system's old and I want a new one, not nearly compelling enough to survive. You will have a runaway project, you will write it down, and you will never succeed. Pick 3 things, non-negotiable, that this thing has to do, that has an ROI on it. You're going to have to sacrifice 20 to 30%. You'll fight maybe another 10 that you'll work with your vendor to get around. There's OCM, plan for it. You're bringing change into your organization. There is no change without pain. Doesn't exist. I'm sorry. So it's going to be painful. Understand it. And you can't build a journey. If I asked you to fly to New York, but I'm going to drop you off somewhere, but I'm not going to tell you where it is, how do you plan to get there? How much food do you carry? Well, how much luggage? I'm not even telling you how long.
Are you threatening me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it feels like. And most of these. So if you don't understand your as is, really understand what you've got, and then when we put the to be, how do you build the journey? You have to have the bookends before you can build the journey. So where I see projects that's gone off the rails is there is no governance, there's no vision of why we're doing it. There's things we can put in the parking lot, take on roadmap later. We don't have those decision trees in place. Everything gets litigated, and then everything is high importance, and the project just goes on until it's 100% what I have, plus all of the new stuff I wanted to see, and then you're done. So have a constrained vision, scope, get it in. It's going to be painful. Figure you've got, what does year 1 look like? What's year 3 look like? What's year 5? Work with your vendor and stop telling your vendor what you need. Tell them why you need it. They build software for a living. That's what they do. You do whatever you do for a living. That's what you do. So if you come to your vendor and say, I want a checkbox on this screen, you've already gone off rails. Why do you need a checkbox on the screen? What's the value? Then that vendor will come back with a solution, right? That's the best approach I would give. I would say those 3 things alone increase your odds of success by 50%.
Perfect. I really appreciate you taking that time to give a couple tangible takeaways, because the ERP pain is real, and I stumble over more and more organizations that are 12, 18, 20 months sometimes into the implementation. Is just not working out. So that was very helpful. So let's shift to what you just opened the door to a minute ago, which is something I really wanted to talk about, which is the future, or as the old Late Show used to say, in the year 2000.
Yeah,
so
that didn't work out.
No, not so well. Your belief, and we're aligned on this, is that UIs are going to go away, and that we're going to move toward a future where a single person can orchestrate what previously would have required a whole team or a whole floor of analysts and folks. And I'm very bought into that based on what I'm seeing. So I guess what I'm saying is you've got a friendly questioner here. So paint that picture for us. What is daily work going to look like in this AI augmented future where we don't have UIs anymore?
So let me ground it first in something I'm sure most of your listeners will know, because it happens to me. I get up in the morning, I do my routine. Anything that is manual, I still have to do it. And I get in my car today and my phone goes, oh, you're 23 minutes or you're 45 minutes from work or whatever it pops up and tells you. I didn't tell it I was going to work. It deduced that and it's giving me a piece of information. And it's even recommending a path to get there. That's context aware. That's aware of the surroundings, aware of you, knowing what you do. So it understands who you are, knows what your intention is, and it understands the context around you. So roll back the 2 to 3 hours, however long it takes you to get up, and you get up and the lights in the room kick on, and the shower maybe starts or the coffee kicks on, and it's contextually doing things. You walk into a room, I'm not flipping a light switch. It knows your preference. So maybe you want them dimmed or maybe you like them bright. It does that. You leave a room, it turns it off, right? It's better than the timers or the sensors. It is curated to you. You get in your car, you drive to work, it's driving you to work, right? And it's routing you to the right place. You walk in the door, it's presenting top end decisions because agents have been working with you all night. And you're providing input, you're providing corrections, the person plus AI strategy is alive and well. You're not sitting with a screen pounding out data anymore. The need for human repeatable excellence goes away. The need for human creative strategic thinking, innovation becomes the critical asset. You're now driving innovation, you're driving creativity, and you're doing command and control against armies of agents to get things done. That's kind of the future, and it's going to be contextual everywhere. We're starting to see a convergence of technologies. Not sure, again, I like blockchain and crypto, and we're seeing a convergence of digital currency starting to hit at a global level. So you're going to see, just like we do streaming video, you're going to see streaming finance. You're going to start to see that as things are going through, I'm not waiting 2 weeks or a month to get paid. I'm getting paid in real time. Just money is flowing as I'm doing stuff into everything. That enables surge pricing. You're starting to see vendors and suppliers getting into surge pricing. I see it, and I'll say I see it on Amazon. My wife found a small little thing that she wanted me to buy for the Keurig. She sent me a link. I clicked on it. I couldn't even get to it. The only closest one was an upsized one because clearly it knew I had higher purchasing power. So it didn't show me the lower purchasing item. She's the only one that can see it. So after being outraged by it, but I understood how the algorithm was feeding into my likes, my preferences, so I'm seeing a version of reality that's curated for me to allow me to do the best work. Back to the business of AMCS. I'm a guy, I'm delivering material, whether it's wood or OCC, recycled fiber, it doesn't matter what it is. I bring it up to a scale house. It senses me because I'm carrying my tractor with me. I drive up to the scale. It knows what's in there because it was expecting me. It weighs it, opens the gate arm, and I go in. There's no screens for me to plug anything in. It just knows everything. The bill of lading or whatever on the way outbound, if I'm picking something up, just appears. I can have a look at it. Oh, just show me that. Oh, okay, that's good. But I wouldn't even have to look at it. I drive up, something fills my truck. I drive out, it weighs me out, and I'm good. You're no longer encumbered with interfaces because there's this perpetual context awareness, and it's curated. It's very specific to me, what I'm doing. The agents are working for me on what I'm doing. That is going to be where we land. Now, the only question is how long it takes us to get there.
Right, right. I think you touched on something that really got my attention in your comments. Actually, multiple things, but I'm going to pluck one from the pile. You juxtaposed the need for strategic thought and strategic visioning in employees against the need for command and control of the army of agents. And I'm interested, how does a middle market executive begin to prepare their team for this type of transition and focus on those two, in many ways, conflicting skill sets? What's that look like? Because ultimately, what you're talking about is maintaining human oversight and decision making when the interfaces go away, and a lot of stuff just becomes, in your words, contextual. So how do we balance the strategy versus the need for, quite frankly, direct management?
So we do this today with humans. I wouldn't recommend that we would alter it significantly. The only thing I would add, and I had a speaking engagement on this, we'll get developers and we train them to work on tasks from a list. So this is, if you have ever worked with programmers before, they come in, they got 10 things on their list, they do those 10 things, they're done, they're waiting for someone to tell them something else. They get good because they do good code, they get promoted, they get good, and then the only way for them to make more money is to now manage someone. And now they've got none of that. They've been working from a list fed to them one by one their entire career. And now you want to promote yourself, you have to be a leader. You're now leading, you're a dev lead, you're a team lead, you're now leading four other developers. And there's an assumption that skill evolved. That's the wrong assumption. We should be teaching leadership from day one. Maybe your leadership is command and control of a series of agentic AIs, but I don't think there's going to be a separation of the tactical command and control and the strategic thinking. I think that's going to be one person that is taught leadership that has the ability to dip down into tactical command and control to manage what I call the human on-ramp. So all agents need this. They'll hit a point, their confidence level drops, you take it to a human. Humans are going to become premium services. So if I call in and I can't get there from the robot and I got to go to human, there's going to be an upcharge to talk to me, right? So now I'm premium. Right now I feel like I'm doing good on the world. And that's where the money is going to come, because there may be needs to get to a human being that can sort things out. Mm-hmm. If I'm teaching leadership and you're seeing agentic AI falling into some of these early startups in their org chart, really at the top of the org chart, I'm putting an AI here that is rolling down tasks to the next management tier because we don't know how to teach AI to manage people. But I can teach people how to manage AI, right? Because I could teach it very similarly. So if you drive leadership early from the day one, that developer or that anyone, customer service agent, doesn't matter. You're bringing them through leadership training. You're bringing them through management of multiple resources and knowing how to allocate resources and understand that subtle tip between being a manager and being a leader, right? Which is, we're still, as humans, we fight this. But if we could train that, you've already prepared a workforce to manage agentic AI. Now you're doing skills-based training, prompt engineering, understanding data enrichment, understanding how to ask questions in a way to get a specific result. And then as those agents get stronger, better at reasoning, I'll just keep putting a quote around that word, then you're going to get more productive. So rather than me going into a division where I have 400 developers reporting to me, I'll have 400 agents because now I can manage that workload, right? That's the infinite game. I'm seeing too many businesses trying to figure out how to cut workforce with agents and AI. That's a finite game. The best you can get to is zero, and then it degrades. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not a win. It will degrade on you, and there will be no way to get out of the spiral once it degrades. But if you flip the narrative and I give an army of agents to a person and I see their productivity go up, that's infinitely scalable. I can scale that infinitely, and I could just keep growing and training that personnel. So investing right now in your personnel don't be afraid of it. Figure out how to get it into your business. Figure out how to train prompt engineering. Figure out how to do, you get what you inspect, not what you expect. So be very careful of the stochastic nature of them, but train that in your people to leverage the tool, and you will see productivity skyrocket across every division. And as agents get turned on and the MCP layer becomes ubiquitous, in the article I had in Forbes, the blockchain was, how do you pay for all this, right? So you do microtransactions on the blockchain, and you just give AI a digital wallet and you fund it to go do stuff, right? And now you have the entire ecosystem manageable, discoverable, and observable, and it's powerful. But leadership skills and then the prompt engineering, how to interact with agents, needs to be trained now. Start training them now. Find any use case, but have a backup with humans so that we can learn, right? Don't shed your workforce. I'm telling you, if you do that, you're making a tragic mistake.
Couldn't agree more. And you phrased this as human is, quote, premium. And I've used very similar language as recently as a month ago when I came in for a consulting agreement with a law firm. And I see this in the professional services firm is a lack of understanding that the cost of expertise in many instances is going to go to zero. And that in your the way that you framed it, I loved how you said, look, we're going to hit a point where those agents or the AI systems kind of become frustrated. I think you used that word, or they become less effective. And then we elevate up to the human as the premium. And that's the model that I think makes the most sense in the future that we're headed toward. But as we bridge from here to there, how do you measure and communicate this augmentation benefit to the employees that fear they're going to be replaced? What kind of messaging does that look like right now? Because there's not a lot of folks that are willing to understand and grapple with this human as premium level while retaining the workforce. To your point, a lot of folks just want to cut, and that is not appropriate.
Yeah, well, again, I try to take the moral parts out of it because I think that just creates an argument. But the reality is, no business wants to go out of business. So Gant it. This is your maximum gains, and then that's it. And then when it degrades, you've fired everyone that could help lift it up. So now you're in a spiral when it goes below that. So one is changing the hearts and minds of the business because they're always going to try to look for efficiencies, but to do it at the cost of your most expensive but also most valuable resource is your human collateral, is you have to show them that you're investing in them. Don't talk about it. Let's start putting courses in. Let's give them an agent. Find use cases in your organization, hire consultants, and then start to train your resources on doing it. You might find out I have a call center of 50 people, and now I can do the work that I have today with just 10. Well, I now have 40 people I've trained on how to interact with AI that I can use to grow my business. So that's the messaging. Where no one in this area gets fired because I just invested a lot of money training you on how to use the agents and make it work. So what we're going to do is take you from maintaining the business to now growing the business. Let me see you, or let me start teaching you how to use AI to do that. If you don't have a strategy, you don't have AI ethics and a moral policy in place up front, it's going to be rocky roads for your business as it goes through because your human collateral is going to go where they're wanted, right? Where they feel valued. And then you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You're not going to have the ability to grow back as things start to degrade. The one thing we are seeing in data science is more synthetic data I use, there is a degradation in it. I think some of you guys proof is on some of these social feeds. They gave it a picture and asked it to replicate the picture, and it was a little off, and then asked it to replicate it off, and it just degraded to something that looked nothing like the original. So just keep that in mind, is that you can only get so far with just the agents. I've heard some people say that knowledge is going to be worth nothing, right? And maybe that's true, but applied knowledge isn't. Applied knowledge is still going to be very valuable. So knowledge that's just sitting there isn't worth anything even today. A lawyer that knows a bunch of stuff but doesn't do anything isn't worth anything. It's the doing and applying that knowledge to output and really getting value from it is where the value is going to be. And an AI is not going to seek out and get initiative and go do stuff for you. Humans do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Embrace it.
Well said. Our time is running short. I want to ask you one or two other questions and leave with some takeaways for execs. One of the things we didn't really touch on, though, was your experience at Jacksonville University. And I know that you're redesigning the computer science curriculum there.
Yeah.
I think you're removing some programming and focusing more on AI orchestration. Just in a couple moments, maybe tell me what you're seeing at the collegiate level in terms of the interest from students in AI, the other faculty members that you're working with. What's the landscape look like right now if I'm a college student entering in and I'm interested in studying AI?
I would say most of the computer science and cybersecurity curriculum is still largely the same, but there's a lot of discussions on what it is. And there's a handful of programs and master's programs that are going, look, we could take you all the way through it, but there's not going to be an opportunity for you in the world. We're shifting. So we're designing right now on that applied knowledge, how to do prompt engineering. We're teaching enough of the under the hood development of LLMs so you understand how they're working, because I think understanding how it works under the hood is important to understanding what its capabilities and limits are. And also, as new developments come out, if you don't have those fundamentals, it's very difficult to ingest innovation as it comes out, right? So we're building the foundation and fundamentals into the course at JU for AI, how to build or leverage platforms that give you the agentic AI on how to connect the tools, how to connect a model, how to keep it very loosely coupled, but still very functional, and get it out the door. This is going to be useful to businesses of folks graduating with a master's level degree in AI that is applied. Again, so that's the shift in focus. You can go deep in the data scientists on how to build your next generation LLM, but there's the big 3 or 4 guys out there that are doing this right now that's invested billions. I don't think you're breaking into that market. But if you have the fundamentals, you can always go there and they'll train you up. But for the general business application is knowing how to walk into a business and go, I could put an agent on that. That would make that more efficient, which let me to show you how to do that and know what services to bring in, how to apply it, how to build the prompts, how to have transparency, auditability, trackability, so you can understand where the errors are and reinforce it. That has immediate value. If students were walking out today, I'd be hiring every one of them that could tell me they could do that.
Absolutely. I know I could place 24 in under 30 minutes personally. Fantastic. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this here with some tangible takeaways. And even though you've covered some of this before, I want to see if we can leave our C-suite audience and our execs with some ideas about their first 90 days, right? So I'm an exec. I want to start my AI journey. I've heard about this thing. What do you recommend that they do for the first 90 days? What do they focus on? What do they try to avoid?
Use case.
Yeah.
Use case. Use case. Keep it narrow. You're not trying to boil the ocean. Find a very narrow scoped use case that you can mature, get it out the door, see how it works. You will not understand the organizational change management impact until you have one in your ecosystem, and then you build on success. But keep the use case narrow. Don't have it run my entire marketing department or replace my entire HR. Just find a very good use case. You know you have strong data for it. Get a good technology partner that can hold your hand through it. It should be no more than a 30, 60, 90, and 90. You're putting it into practice. You have your human on-ramps, so you're not dependent on it. And then you're measuring metrics. What are you expecting to get? Why did you do it? Why did you do it? Get your vision out and then hold metrics to prove that why, win on it, and then grow from there. It gets real easy once you've done one because a lot of the magic goes away, a lot of the question marks go away, and all the fear goes away. Mm-hmm. So Perfect. Get one, keep it narrow. And look, I do want to just leave this one thing because I think it's a positive side of the future is if you go down to lower grades in school, elementary school, even before then, we have built an education system that demands repeatable excellence out of humans. We've created fear of success. Once a person reaches or achieves a certain level of status, they stop taking risks. They don't want to lose it because of the way our education, because that's what our businesses needed, was humans to be able to repeat. I believe the future is AI takes that burden of repeatable excellence from us, and now we can be the humans we were meant to be, and we can allow children to grow the way they are meant to be, very creative, risk takers, be able to look at things in novel ways and invent things, and then leverage this tech. I'm so excited about this proliferation in our society. I think my grandchildren will be the first children that will be born in this new age and have the ability to maintain their childlike creativity that I'm sorry to say our education system beats out of our children by the time they graduate as young adults. I'm very excited for what this will bring. We will see a new age of humanity if we allow that to happen. So that's the person plus AI vision out of me that I want to see happen. Just like the labor and being on the farm machines have taken all that labor and heavy lifting, this is where AI takes the repeatable excellence burden and allows us to just dream of things we didn't think were possible and start working with AI to get there. So I'm excited about that. I'm hoping that comes within the next 10 years.
What a beautiful vision for the future. And I couldn't agree more. I find so many people want to beat up on the educational system, but the educational system is a reflection of our society.
Yeah, they're servicing
we programmed it.
Business. That's right.
So
it's not like it happened to us.
No. So let's take charge and let's reprogram it. And I love the vision that you just shared. I can't think of a better way to end our conversation today. So thank you so very much, Evan. I really enjoyed our time together.
Good. Me too, Chad. I appreciate the opportunity, brother.
Absolutely. For our listeners that want to learn more about you, about your organization, get in touch. I know you're about the easiest man in the world to find, but how can somebody track you down?
You could go to my website, evanjschwartz.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's a different URL, but I can leave it with you. You can put it in the podcast, or you can see me at AMCS. You can go to amcsgroup.com. So there's, like you said, there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me, and I love to chat about this stuff. So I'm very open to do it.
Wonderful. I can't wait to have you back at a future date, and we'll see how the technology matures and how our conversation changes. So thanks.
All right, so I'll see you next week then.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. And for our listeners out there, oh my, thank you for tuning in once again to AI for the C-Suite, where we're committed to helping you thrive during the exponential age. If you found value in today's discussion, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on all the socials, and visit our site, aiforthec-suite.com. Join us next time as we continue to unlock the potential of AI for your organization. And until then, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.